call Denise Roche.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm taking this opportunity because on Friday it was Workers' Memorial Day, which is a time when we should all reflect on the number of people who go to work and actually never come back. And in fact, in the previous 3 weeks, 7 people had died on the job. So for my contribution to this debate, I wanted to talk about the review, the annual review that we did with WorkSafe New Zealand, who I have to say are working incredibly hard to try and turn around the downward, what was quite a huge number of people who were dying at work, to turn that around. So in the review period that we were looking at, 2015 to 16, there had been 59 deaths at work. But since 2012 and the targets that WorkSafe have been setting, that's actually been trending downwards, and they should be congratulated. Unfortunately, sir, there was something like 230,000 ACC claims in the same time for work-related injuries, and that has been trending upwards. Now, on top of those injuries, on top of those deaths at work, there was also between 600 and 900 deaths from work-related illnesses, most of which were airborne. Now, sir, I think when we look at that and we look at the fact that our economy runs on our workforce, then we need to be looking at what sort of investment we're putting into ensuring that that workforce is safe. And I have to say that this government has taken a very cavalier approach to industrial relations, which is how workers have traditionally maintained safety on the job. And I guess we just have to look at the 29 deaths and the tragedy at the Pike River mine to look at how cavalier things can become when unions are not on site and not as active, and when there is limited monitoring and compliance. And that, I guess, is the crux of the matter. The health and safety inspectors that we have are pressed to the max. And if you think about the number of small workplaces that we have in this country, and we're looking at tens of thousands, well, I think there's something like, I think I saw something like 78,000 in one area alone. If you look at those work sites, and you look at the ability for health and safety inspectors to actually monitor the conditions there, it's just totally impossible. And we've seen through the Labour Inspectorate, who have been visiting smaller work sites, particularly in the agricultural sector, which is one of the highest, has the highest fertility rates, that there's been a real breach of minimum employment standards right across the board in terms of minimum pay, hours of work, holidays, sick leave, record keeping, just basic standards not being met. And if you think about those small work sites in the agricultural sector, maybe in farming, and what you have there as well is a high prevalence of workers who are originally not from this country. People who've come here who obviously are contributing to our economy, but are frequently in an isolated situation where they're vulnerable to exploitation. And we see this time and time again, and this is something that we definitely need to be keeping an eye on, particularly when we're looking at our immigration policies. And so that's the difference between this country and lots of other countries. You know, in the UK, here in New Zealand, you're 4 times more likely to die at work than if you were a worker in the UK. Australia beats us as well. You're twice as likely to die here in New Zealand than if you were a worker in Australia. And it's just not acceptable, because we could be investing more in our people, more in our businesses, to ensure that people are safe at work, that they are getting the minimum rates of pay and conditions. And what we need to be doing, sir, is we need to be ensuring that our unions are able to take their part in ensuring that our workers can participate in health and safety. And that was the thing that was gutted in the Health and Safety Act that was enacted in that 2015 year. So, sir, this is a missed opportunity. We could be doing much better, and I hope we will.
I call Brett Hudson.